Hello everybody. On this channel I try and avoid the whole new versus used game. For one very simple reason really. Whenever you try and compare a brand new car, particularly at RRP, with an old one, it will inevitably fail, at least on paper. However, today we are going to be playing that very game. You see, for 170,000 of your Earth pounds, you could buy a brand new 992 Turbo S. Yes, I know that car is obscenely fast, but it leaves me about as excited as a bowl of porridge. Not even with a little bit of honey in it either. For the very same money as that, you could pop down to Meridien Modena in the New Forest and have this, a Ferrari 488 GTB. Now, I've not actually driven a 488 before. In fact, I haven't driven any of the new generation of mid-engine cars. I haven't driven 458, haven't driven F8. Today's drive is a bit of a baptism by fire because I am attempting to do my very best to talk to you about this car whilst driving it through the New Forest. And for that reason, this isn't a strict review as you might normally expect from me. Think of it as more as a sort of detailed first drive. The 488 is an unusual car to look at. Very bold, big front end, which I'm not sure I'm entirely in love with. And ever since Ferrari moved away from Pininfarina and the sort of 458 onwards, their cars have taken on a very different look to them. Sure, there'll be plenty of people out there who really lost after the older, more classically pretty ones that they made. And the good news is that you can still buy those, but there's no doubt that these are certainly aerodynamically a lot more effective, if not quite as gorgeous to behold. There's no doubting though that the 488 is certainly a striking thing. One thing about the new Turbo that disappoints me is the fact that it's not really very different looking in comparison to a regular Carrera. The Turbo's always really stood out and been a very, very different thing to behold, but now, not so much. A Ferrari though, you got no worries getting noticed in one of these, even in this fairly subdued shade of Grigio Titanium. In fact, let's pause and take a moment to admire it. An unusual spec, this car, and for one really good reason. Most Ferrari cars, particularly press cars, and this isn't a press car, this is a stock car, a used approved car from Meridien Modena. Most Ferrari cars you'll see on YouTube have carbon fibre everything. Their carbon has carbon on it. This one doesn't, and it's a really nicely, realistically spec'd car. There's no carbon at the front, no expensive bits to scrape and destroy if you're going into a pub car park that's just a little bit too steep. Same at the back. There are carbon bits on the exterior, but they're in places where they hopefully won't get damaged. Same on the inside. Your base Ferrari trim is a sort of aluminium looking thing, which isn't all that nice. You could then have carbon, but it's a £4,000 option. The owner of this car decided to spec it, I think, very tastefully, because he's had these interior components colour-coded to the exterior. It works really well. More people should do this. Hey, probably spent a little bit of money doing it, but it works. This is also a car that is pretty much, ignoring the colour, to my spec, with these carbon Daytona buckets in here, plenty of leather everywhere, and it does feel like a really special, high-quality place. I mean, just everything's stitched beautifully, and I've driven this car for about an hour over some awfully rough roads, and it's really solidly put together. It doesn't creak, it doesn't rattle. It's a fabulous thing. But with any Ferrari, you want to know how it goes. So now the road's cleared a little bit. Let's see, shall we? Stones. I'm sorry, Meridien, I'm sorry. It certainly goes well enough. Traction's not too bad either. Yeah, it does move around, but to be fair, these are really uneven roads, so I have to forgive it. The 3.9 litre turbocharged engine that Ferrari are using now is an absolute masterpiece. No other way to describe it. Sure, the 4 litre in a McLaren 720S has better firepower, but it's just not quite as razor sharp as this. Yeah, the McLaren unit is a lot better than it used to be. The 650s was still reasonably laggy, but this Ferrari is so responsive from nothing, and we're just over 2,000 RPM now. power just feeds in beautifully. And if you're even higher RPM, 3,000 or so, wonderful, absolutely sensational. Of course, if you are going to compare this with a McLaren, you might talk about the carbon fibre construction that the Woking cars like to use. In convertible form, perhaps that does give them some sort of tangible stiffness advantage. But here in a coupe, the Ferrari doesn't seem to give much away at all. What you do lose is that ridiculous suppleness of the McLaren. Something like a 650, a 720, or especially a 12C is ludicrously comfortable. And this Ferrari is not uncomfortable, but it is firm. If you're a McLaren fan, I'd say about 600 LT firm. It's also razor sharp. I mean, the way this thing turns into a corner is just unreal. Really quite something. Again, maybe the steering doesn't have quite the feel of the McLaren units, but I think actually perhaps it's better than the 720, but honestly, you'd be picking holes in it because it is, in isolation, absolutely superb. Yes, it's fast, it really is, and I've been driving a lot of cars with fast steering racks lately, so perhaps it doesn't seem unusually fast to me because of that, but it's never caused any problems at all. The Maserati 3200 that I drove the other day was far more problematic in terms of its steering setup. View out the front is pretty good too. You got these nice big haunches. You check your mirror and you can see these great big vents on the side, which I think really are the dominant styling feature of the 488. Does it sound like a 458 Speciale? Of course it doesn't. It never was going to. Does it sound much better than a McLaren? Oh yes it does. This is a fabulous unit. Gearbox, great to use, smooth when you want, quick when you want. Wheel, really nice to hold. I am getting used slowly to Ferrari's approach of putting all the buttons on the wheel. In the Portofino, the indicators had a little sort of ridge behind them so you could use them almost like a normal indicator, but in this earlier car, they're not there. The infotainment system is baffling. I'll be honest. I'd about gotten used to Portofino, so I thought I would be able to work this. I was wrong. Once you know how it works, it's actually not so bad. There are lots and lots of buttons in here, and it's a cluttered layout in comparison to, say, the McLaren or even perhaps the Audi R8. Anybody who thinks that painting your Ferrari in a stealthy colour like this will mean that you don't get noticed, I'm afraid you're in for a shock. People go bananas for this car. They love it. To me, that really is a major part of the appeal. I mean, why would you buy one of these cars if you're a sort of shrinking violet? That, for me, has always been the point of the 911 Turbo. Go as fast as a Ferrari, but without any of the drama or the fuss. However, things have changed quite a bit in the last few years, and buying a Ferrari now needn't be a drama-filled experience. All Ferrari cars in the UK now come with 4 years warranty as standard and 7 years free servicing, and I really do mean that. Servicing intervals on this car are annual or every 12,500 miles. You do more miles, you get more free services. I mean, what better incentive could you possibly need to drive your Ferrari? If you buy a Ferrari approved used car like this one, you get 24 months of warranty, and that may be either the balance of the manufacturer warranty or Ferrari's own extended warranty, which up until about 10 years old, I'm told, is pretty much equivalent in cover to the regular warranty. And there's no excess, meaning if anything breaks on this car that isn't a wear and tear item, you're sorted. No worries, Ferrari have got your back. That's pretty good. As part of the prep process, Ferrari also do everything you'd expect them to, and they make sure that the car's got at least a year's worth of consumables on it, meaning that tyres, brakes and all that sort of stuff will be up to a decent standard. And these are the sort of things that you're going to want to know about if you're thinking about something like the new 911 Turbo, because that surely is a very daily drivable car. And a lot of people would think that a Ferrari couldn't be daily driven. I don't see any reason why you couldn't daily drive this car. It's even got a lift kit on it. lights that work, a sat-nav that talks to you, although she seems to speak only through a special little speaker down here. Very unusual. These seats are brilliant, really comfortable, and they look the part. Obviously, no point having seats that look good if they aren't comfy, but these strike a perfect balance. I was concerned that maybe for daily use they'd be perhaps a little bit too severe, but no, I'm getting on with these just fine. Now, I should say that seats are a very, very personal thing, so if you are thinking of speccing a car or just buying one, do try them out and don't just sit in them quickly. Really get yourself comfortable, go for an extended test drive if you can, and check that they work for you, because you don't want to buy a car only to find out that the seats give you a little bit of back pain. It's not a problem with the design, it's just the way different body shapes work. In a corner like this car is ludicrously competent, and there's a lot of bumps and compressions and things here, and it does just soak them up. The harder you push in this thing, the better it gets. There's always a concern in a car like this that its performance might mean that at regular sensible speeds it's simply a little aloof and not unenjoyable, but just unengaging. I don't actually find that with the 488 at all. I'm also not getting the same sensation that I had with the F12, which is a car that was so hypersensitive that I really couldn't relax in it. It isn't a natural GT car, really. It's perhaps a little bit too stiff for that. But visibility is very good, and space at the front is decent too. Again, compared to the boot space you get in the front of a 911 or an R8, actually quite generous. Also far better than the F12 are the brakes. Those were quite grabby things, and these actually are really nice to modulate. They are exceptional. They do squeal on occasion though. The exhaust volume also seems to be judged just right. At sensible speeds and driving through town like this, no need to wake everybody up. Except when the start-stop kicks in. That's quite frustrating. I haven't found the button to turn that off. I'm sure there must be one around here somewhere, but in sport mode you kind of stop at the lights and the power will just cut straight away. Then you go to move away and it gives you a big noisy flare of revs, and it makes you look a little bit silly. That is a minor criticism. So this little section of road here, I've driven this a few times, and as you'll see from the cameras, it really is quite lumpy and bumpy, but this car just takes it in its stride. This corner quite sharp, it didn't care, just around and through. And its steering really does come alive. And it's not got the ultimate texture through it, but it's certainly communicative enough. Oh, wow. That response is something else. Once you're above like 4,000 RPM, legitimately, this feels like a naturally aspirated engine. Just full stop. Very, very few turbocharged units can pull that off. I'm sure the 458's brilliant. Like I said, haven't driven one. If you've got one and you're happy for me to drive it, let me know. I'll come around, I'll tell you what I think. But, and here's the important bit, I live in the real world. Opportunities to wring the neck of a car like that are few and far between. When I'm driving most of the time, it's on a road like this, and I want to be able to make decent progress. And I can do that. Get from 40 to the national speed limit easily, without too much drama, but with enough excitement. And this thing is just not lacking for pace. I knew that it wouldn't. Come on, it's 660 horsepower Ferrari. But I was worried that it would lack for drama, interaction, and feedback at lower speeds. I needn't have worried at all. I'm still worried about making mincemeat out of a pony though, and that wouldn't go down too well. I don't believe this car even has the high power hi-fi, and I've got to say, it's actually pretty decent too. I do keep looking at pistas, not that I can afford one, not that I can afford one of these, and I love the look of them. Like, as a styling exercise, they are just incredible, they just work. But to drive on my favourite roads, I just can't see a reason for ever needing any more than this. It is a true red-blooded, card-carrying supercar that is one of the last of its line, but it's just about tame enough that you could still use it as much as you want and take it as far as you like, knowing also that you're not going to get rinsed for servicing or warranty or anything like that, because it's all part of the package. And so for that reason, quite frankly, I think if you buy a 911 Turbo instead of one of these, you must be mad. If nothing else, this is the nicest waiting room I've ever been in. Still looking forward to get back into my 550 though. Might feel a bit slower now. Never mind. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment below, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you all for the next one. Bye bye.